Dubey sir, you can unmute and say.
Okay. So, good morning, friends. It's really nice to be back this Sunday again. And this morning we have Dr. Richa Sharma with us. She's going to speak to us for the first time. And Richa is going to talk to us on Krishnamurti's message to her, which is be courageous. I want to extend a very warm welcome to you, Richa ji, and thanks a lot uh, on behalf of Indore Study Group. I am really thankful that you accepted our request and you are being with us today. Normally, the format is that the speaker takes anywhere between 50 minutes to an hour and then leaves about 25-20 minutes for question answer session. So you can speak, for as long as you want, but we'll try and cover it before 1 hour so that the participants have comments to make and questions to ask. Let me briefly introduce our speaker to you today. Dr. Richa Sharma is alumni of Miranda House and St. Stephen's College, University of Delhi. She is presently working as the assistant professor at the Tata Institute of Education. Perhaps this is the new name of TIS, is it? Please unmute yourself. Unmute it. Yeah.
It's the full form of TIS.
Okay. She is in Mumbai. She holds a doctoral degree from JNU Delhi. And prior to joining TIS, she has taught at the University of Delhi and Jamia Millia Islamia. She has also been associated with Room to Read, Deshkal Society, and UNFPA. Her areas of interest includes philosophy of education, epistemology, critical pedagogy, and teacher education. So with these words, I want to welcome Richa ji once again and want to thank her for being with us today. And ma'am, you can begin your lecture now.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to extend my gratitude to this group who has given me this opportunity. And I would straight away go to the ideas that I would like to share with you all. My engagement with Krishnamurti started as a student of education when I entered into the B.Ed course at Delhi University. That's when my teacher there had introduced me to the ideas of Krishnamurti on education. And since I continued to be a learner who is involved into teacher education and who is surrounded by students and is part of that practice, the interaction with Krishnamurti has been sort of it's a continuous engagement. And even after several years of getting introduced to him, I'm not sure if I understand him completely, but he allows us that freedom that we can reach out to him and his ideas the way we think are our own. And it's on this line that I have decided to speak on this title that when I think of Krishnamurti, I think of courage. And it has to do with three fundamental roles that I see I have come to play, in this brief journey so far. First, that I associate myself to this role of being a teacher. Second, I also am a single woman, and I've been living my life on my own for about almost 2 decades now, since I moved for higher studies to different places, and how it shaped the person that I am, that experience, and what role Krishnamurti's idea play in shaping the way I think about certain experiences of being a single woman. And third, being a friend. because when I moved away from home, it's one relation that is of friendship that defines a large part of my relational association with my surroundings. So in these three roles, I would uh, situate my ideas, and so I'll start with being a teacher, and then I would I would share personal experience, and then I would sort of talk how Krishnamurti's ideas have influenced those experiences at different point of time in my journey. Being a teacher, every year, I mean, prior to being a teacher, as a learner also, we see that there is a constant fear that we experience, fear to perform, both as a student and as well as teachers. This fear is all pervasive in a way that it steps deep into the entire education system at present. From administration to teachers to students to parents and the larger society, and there's overarching pressure to perform. We have innumerous statistics to tell us that, and a lot of comparison, who performed better, how much someone has scored, girls versus boys, private schools versus public schools, who is doing better. This trickles down to, of course, to students in different manner, where they undergo a lot of issues pertaining to mental health at very early stage in their life. It also trickles down to their parents, who are constantly pushing them to perform better, and to the teachers, who then are entrusted with this responsibility that they are the one who are responsible for the either the better or poor performance of their students. Media, of course, has a role to play here, and there is a entire discourse which sort of emerges in the aftermath, the board results and entrance results, etc. Now, here, if I bring in my interpretation of Krishnamurti, I realize that first and foremost, we have to understand what is it to perform better, and second, why it is necessary to even perform. What is the real meaning of education? And then what is the role of a teacher? When I look at, I am primarily referring to the 1953 book, Education and Significance of Life. And there I see that this is a very peripheral and in fact a misplaced understanding of education, which we associate with certain kind of performance that enables us to be skilled for the market that is there out for us to provide us job. Now, becoming skillful is part of, maybe a very small part of, the entire idea of education. And Krishnamurti would say that, in fact, it's not education in the real sense at all. How do we then conceptualize? How must we conceptualize education then? And as a teacher, what am I supposed to do? So for me, the journey has been such that I feel Krishnamurti asked me to be courageous, to reject the notions of certain kind of achievements. He asks me to be courageous, to question the existing parameters of what is, who is a meritorious student, who is performing better. He asked me to be courageous, to shun the the statistics which sort of limits a being's existence in terms of them being able to find a job at the end of completing certain amount of education. And what happens when I do not find this courage? I become a meek dictator who is situated between students on one hand, with whom she can assert certain kind of authority, and that's where she becomes dictator. This is the idea which Krishna Kumar, who is an educationist, gives, that when teachers are not courageous enough, they sort of find themselves between two axes. One, that of students upon whom they can assert certain authority, and administration on the other hand, who asserts certain authority on the teacher. So a teacher who has a lot of pressure to in various circumstances to perform, to give results in so and so in certain percentage, is able to assert a kind of authority which is uncalled for in that premise of a classroom. Whereas as soon as she steps out and has to deal with the administration, the very teacher becomes meek, because she is also bound by those limitations of system. Now, what do we do if we do not have courage to speak up to the authority? And here the message is very clear from Krishnamurti, that where he again and again asks us to rely on our own reason, rely on our own thoughts. In fact, at one level, he would also say that reason is also problematic. I'll come to that when I'll discuss the role being a single woman. But teacher has to be courageous enough to talk about her opinions, her ideas, and must not be afraid of public opinions, must not be afraid to challenge the existing notions of what is the meaning that education must have. She should be able to go beyond the given, in the sense that there is a possibility of enlightenment of her learners. This enlightenment idea, if I correlate it with Kant's idea of enlightenment, Krishnamurti also says that enlightenment is that where you come out of your own immaturity. What is immaturity? When you surrender to the authority of the others, when you're not self-governed, in the sense that you are not operated by your own will. This is a very powerful message I feel that I have as a teacher from Krishnamurti, where I would want to understand my own sort of foundations in terms of how free I am, and then only can I become a teacher whose children are not fearful. Krishnamurti clearly says that if children are to be free from fear, the educator herself must be the one who is fearless. So, how do I become that teacher? And is there a possibility to become such kind of a teacher without becoming an independent, fearless, courageous person in my other roles, say that of being a friend and that of being a single woman? So I am now going to other roles, because Krishnamurti allows me to look into the various roles we acquire for ourselves within this one existence of being. and how they are related. At the same time, most of them are merely unreal as such. So at one level, we can distinguish it by being saying that one is our private role and one is a personal public role. So my role being a teacher is my public role, and then there emerges this idea that in your public role you must there are certain rules and regulation that you must abide by, and therefore as a teacher I must follow what my authorities are saying, and I must abide by the objectives in terms of the result that I have to produce. But is it different from my private role, where I am someone else in the sense I'm a friend and I'm a daughter and I'm a single woman? How are we what kind of dialogue is happening within our own self in terms of our different roles? To my mind, Krishnamurti would tell us that this is unreal, that we think of ourselves in terms of private, public. And it is very much a Western idea where you sort of define one's existence in those binaries. The role, I will first come after this. Now I am moving to the role as a friend. It starts with a, and then finally I'll conclude as to how I sort of think where should I go from here. As a friend, I was traveling with my best friend to one part of Delhi that we had not been to earlier. There are certain privileges that we have as someone who is into a system where we have regular income, we can afford certain kind of life. And now we were traveling to a part of the city whose infrastructure was poor, where you would have inhabitants whom you do not interact in your regular life on a day-to-day basis. So at one fine evening in winter, we were traveling together, and then I see that there's certain kind of anxiety and discomfort that my friend was feeling, and she was again and again asking, are we on the right route? Is this the place we were supposed to come? And she suddenly says that let's ask him to take us back, the person who was driving us. And then I asked us, what is making you so anxious? And she says, it feels very strange. It feels that we are in the sort of a wrong place. I said, what do you mean by the wrong place? And it sort of, we had a brief discussion, and it emerges that it's the unfamiliarity which was causing her that anxiety. Now, is this actually the unfamiliarity or the limitation of our own experience of different sorts of life that exist around us, or mere ignorance of various existence around us? And so what am I supposed to do as a friend? Where do I make her understand that it's all right, have patience, let's reach us to the destination, let's explore that there are different kind of worlds that exist around us, and observe them. Nonetheless, that experience stayed with me, because we went on discussing it in terms of when do we become courageous in such moments? Where do we find that confidence that we can chart unfamiliar territories? How do we make ourselves comfortable when we are surrounded by strangers? How do we make ourselves absolutely at peace even when there is chaos around, even when our mind is telling us that you probably are unsafe here? And that relates to my being a single woman in most part of my life, where I've spent around 2 decades uh, living away from my family and on my own. Now, there have been moments where I had to deal with uh, from, in my day-to-day life, from plumber to electricians to property dealers to various sorts of people. Now, it so happened that once I moved from hostels to have my own private accommodation, most of the property dealers in Delhi NCR asked me to hide that I'm a single woman and I'll be living on my own. I kept asking them, why should I do that? And there was a clear idea that, you would have more visitors. There might be male visitors, and that's not good for the society that you would be living in and finding your accommodation. Most landlords are uncomfortable to lend your house if you're living on your own, because supposedly you would not even keep the house in a good condition. You might have a erratic lifestyle. So there are these notions, and to sort of satisfy that misconstruction, I had to lie, that I was supposed to lie, that I would live with my parents, who would, if not live, all the time with me, would visit me and stay with me from time to time. I could not find a house for almost 7 months because I didn't agree to opt that narrative. It also and then I was feeling that, will I be able to find a house if I'll continue with this uh, 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 truthfulness within? And also at the same time understanding that there are misconstructions, particularly about being a single woman. Was I lonely in that experience? Are there others who are going through the same? Or how does one sort of come to terms with such kind of experiences? And then again, I realized that it requires certain courage. And so being a teacher, it requires courage. Being a friend, it requires courage. Being a single woman, it requires courage. And this courage is something that makes my being as a whole one, as in, like, if irrespective of my public and private roles, it's the existence as a whole that requires us to be courageous. Now, where did I find, and what instances are there in Krishnamurti's writing that for each of these I had certain learnings from Krishnamurti? With respect to education, of course, I keep going back to his idea of social conditioning. And that I feel is also then relates to how the society operates and brackets you into certain ideas. Conditioning with respect to who you are. I am a woman. That's like gender is your maybe a primary conditioning. Who you are. I'm a teacher. That's again a conditioning. Because are you just merely a teacher? Aren't you a learner at the same time? who you are in terms of I'm a Hindu, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim. Aren't you a human being at the bottom of it all? What is it around you? Is this the river or is this Ganges? So if it's Ganges, isn't it the river that the perennial river which is flowing? So the courage where you can shun your immediate brackets, your immediate predicates, be it in terms of your gender, be it in terms of your religion, be it in terms of your professional identities, be it in terms of the class consciousness that my friend was having in that moment of anxiety when she was visiting a place she had not been before. So the courage comes in from the realization that we have conditioned ourselves to be limited. We have conditioned ourselves in frames, and that does not allow us to look beyond those frames. All our anxieties of performance, it has to do with your seeing yourself just in the frame of being a teacher at a particular point of time, having certain amount of teachers. The condition to be a person who is uncomfortable in charting unknown routes, who is uncomfortable looking at realities that she may not encounter in her day-to-day life owing to her certain privileges. The conditioning where I see myself as a single woman in the brackets, the brackets and frameworks of the society which are given to me. So Krishnamurti asks me to decondition myself, and that's where the journey to be courageous begins. Deconditioning from the immediate identities that are given or in fact are imposed on us in terms of our religious identity, gender identity, class, caste identity, etc. Krishnamurti has given me courage to shun some of them, and in those moments where I found myself vulnerable, allows me to find courage by realizing that the existence is of it's a much greater reality than what we have come to think of it and how we have conceived it via different within different frames that are given to us. Why this conditioning? Because of course we have not taught ourselves to question. We have not taught ourselves to break those norms and frameworks and ideas. We have not taught ourselves to be relying on our own will. We have not taught ourselves. We have in fact found it easy to be guided by the already existing authorities of various kinds. This could be pandits, this could be Maulvis, this could be existing political establishments, which tells you that this is the finest form of government, etc. And we have not been able to go beyond what is given because we have not been courageous enough. So all of it requires us courage. And how you sort of decondition yourself, and that's when that deconditioning happens when you observe the fear, its root causes, and all of it is beautifully enumerated in Krishnamurti's writing and his speeches at various times. The one idea that actually fascinates me more with respect to this entire fear and courage discourse is that Krishnamurti at one point echoes Kabir, where Kabir says that, you have to, when I'm saying we have to shun our immediate identities. So it's when, when Kabir says, had had par sab hi gaye, behad gayo na koi. Had within limits, everyone goes, it's operating within limits of various kinds, you know. So had had par sab hi gaye, behad gayo na koi. बेहद के मैदान में रमे कबीरा सोए. And the one who goes beyond, and that's what Krishnamurti is urging again and again to do, that you must go beyond what is given. What is given to you is fragmented. What is given to you is distorted. What is given to you bounds you. And therefore you must break all of it and go to Behad. And I associate with this idea also because I'm a daughter of Malwa, where I have grown up listening to Kabirs in Malvi, in various traditions, and also in the voice of Kumar Gandhar, when he also sings Nirbhay Nirbhor Kunire Gauri. It's coming together of these ideas of Kabir and Krishnamurti together that I find that being single doesn't mean being lonely. In fact, the condition is that you must learn to be alone. And I would like to quote Krishnamurti here, who says that only to the alone can causeless come. Now, causelessness is very essential, because if we understand the given theory of karma, it is based on cause and effect. And that given unchallenged theory is something that has allowed certain frames to continue, like frames of caste, frames of disabilities, that you're born in such and such form because of your karma. So because that this is a causation. Now if you have to go beyond it, you have to be alone. You have to seize that causal cycle. So Krishnamurti writes, only to the alone can causelessness come. Only to the alone there is bliss. So it's this realization that you being single doesn't mean that you're lonely. And you must sort of, realize that in this moment where you might have more time to engage with yourself, you can break the shackles of several frameworks that you find yourself operating within. He further writes, and that's what that's essential for my understanding of myself, that the aloneness of which I am speaking is pure and incorrigible. It is free from the traditions of all sorts. It would involve all sorts of causation with respect to karma theory, causation with respect to why you're in a certain form, etc. So this aloneness is free from all traditions, of all dogmas and opinion, of everything that another has said. So you are coming out of the authority of the other. You would sort of derive the authority from within when you are alone. He says, when the mind is in this state of aloneness, it is quiet, essentially still, and not asking for anything. And such a mind is capable of knowing what is truth. So truth is the courage within, the realization of the courage within, at least as far as my understanding of Krishnamurti is concerned. And that then, flows into various roles that I found myself in. When I take this courage to my classroom, I encourage my students to ask questions. I encourage them to think out of the box in terms of why they have opted for the course and particular course and not anything else. They questions their own choices and their own decisions. Though it is disheartening when you learn that when you get into that kind of a discussion, we realize that most of our students are in the courses because someone must have asked them to be there, particularly their parents. They are being forced into making that decision. But even that realization that this is not their own decision, it's a good beginning for me as a teacher. This courage then sweeps into my friendships where we are friends not because of the causation, where we have liberty and freedom to discuss the deepest and most controversial issues and conditioning of our own mind, where I could challenge her saying that you're more privileged and you're ignorant of the realities around. And your fear is very artificial. It emanates from the pictures and ideas that are given to you via media, via literature, via several other mediums. You have to come out of those and realize and find your own truth in terms of you experiencing various existence around you via your own sort of reasoning and your own experience by being there. So in all these three roles, I feel that fundamentally, whenever I have experienced a kind of anxiety, a kind of turmoil, or kind of confusion, and I have sort of decided to go back to Krishnamurti and realize that the only message that I derive again and again is that I must be courageous to be alone, to be governed by my own will, and to be able to transcend myself to Behad, to realize the real existence that is beyond the given gender, caste, class, public, private roles, etc. So that's where I would like to sort of stop. I would like to say that I still am trying, not sure whether I understand Krishnamurti, but I'm certain that at every point of time I have reached out to his writings, his wisdoms. I found a definite way forward to lead my life in certain way, which is slightly more courageous than its previous one. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Richa ji. I think very beautifully put. I had some reservations with the word courageous right from the time when you mentioned that this is the topic you're going to speak on. But I think you explained it very well towards the third quarter of your lecture, where when you mentioned about deconditioning. So I think seeing things as they are, or at least when I can see things without any distortion, then courage is a byproduct of that seeing. Because if I say that I have to develop or cultivate courage, this brings in effort. So I can be very courageous and speak to you totally untrue things because I have the courage, I can do that. But if there is clarity, then what comes out is, what will happen when you have the courage. So I wanted to make this distinction. Another thing I'd like to mention that, fear in something which has been always used in our education, because we have a feeling that if you create fear, then the children learn more, they prepare better, and so on. And it has historical facts. Many of us are aware that during Second World War, the Manhattan Project, which was started by US, and they were afraid that the Germans have developed atomic bomb and all that. So their scientists and engineers worked overtime, and they did create atom bombs much before the Germans did. So I think I remember in Rajghat when Krishji was talking about fear to a group of teachers, and one teacher got up and said, "Sir, how can I talk about fear to my children when I'm always fearful myself?" Then he said, "Sir, that is the time when you have to talk to and tell them that you also have fear. So let's see what causes fear, where from it brings, what brings fear in our psyche." So I think it's important to see what is happening inside us. Not that you become totally free of anything, but if you see that, then a different flavor comes out of your actions. So this is what I would say. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot for beautifully raising the role of a teacher. I think many of us who have been associated with educational institutions would have greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. We'll take
Thank
questions now. We'll start with Durga ji. Yes, ma'am. Please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. I hope I'm audible, sir.
Yes, you are. Yes.
Yeah. Good morning, Richa. Yeah, it's wonderful listening to you. First of all, I appreciate that, you felt so free to narrate your own life, real life incidents. And you shared all the, experiences you have gone through in your life. And I really appreciate the honesty with which you went about narrating them. And I'm I can say I'm thankful to listen to all that. In fact, it's wonderful knowing that you have been reading Krishna ji and trying to bring it into your day-to-day experiences. I think that is the area we all should learn to do that. And education was so much dear to Krishna ji's teaching. That was the area he, time and again he emphasized, and he had innumerable lectures and talks with the teachers and the educators and all that. So, and it's a continuous process of learning, and there is no end to it. And like my previous speaker, Dubeji has contributed valuable points. It is like, one unending journey of explorations, unending journey of learning lessons and expanding your avenues. How we can be narrowed down and we can start living in your own petty little area of life, or we can take steps into courage. Yeah, courage is very essential, I feel. If you are covered at heart, and if you are all the time worried about what others say and what others think, I think then any end of Krishnaji's books, any end of reading them, it won't happen to you unless and until you experiment in your life. That's what the Krishnaji's teaching is about. Experiment, see for yourself, explore, and we don't know when the clarity may come in or it may not come in. There will be dilemmas, there will be confusion. It's not that one sudden day, one sudden moment, one goes into some kind of a elite state or something like that. It may not happen, but it is, if one is at it, if your heart is in it, I think that's where it matters. And I really appreciate that you taking time and sharing your personal journeys and queries and all. Thank you very much. Good day.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Dinesh Waghmare. Please unmute yourself.
Are you able to listen to me, madam? Yeah, you're muted. Okay. Madam, today's whatever you have said about the courage, I also think that it is the result of basically your competence. And this, as soon as your fear is more related with your role play, as you said. This role once has been decided, and once the competence level has reached, or rather we can say that this is more related to the flowering of a person. How to deal as soon as his competence levels goes up, how to deal with the pupil, how to deal with the conditions of the pupil, how to deal in the various places. As soon as he is rich in his experience, then I think this courage is the result of whatever your experience you are having. And it is less related to the conditioning of the pupil, as you said. You are to going more load on the conditioning of the or the situation of the people. That I found people were having so much condition that they were there was difficulty in getting house and all that. But this the conditions will be there which are adverse in one way or other. But as soon as I think that in my experience, whatever I got, as soon as your competence level goes up, these all questions are automatically answered. So one has to focus on himself and go for this improvement of the competence level. That's what I think. What are your views on this? Thank you, madam.
Should I take one on one?
Yeah, sure.
Dinesh ji. Yeah, confidence to my mind is when I'm saying courage, it encompasses confidence also, but for that requires self-reflection. So when I'm saying that, so I do agree to what Dubey ji has submitted, that in part it is an outcome. So yes, you're also saying that's part is an outcome, but that outcome is also a churning within, and to my mind that churn is the beginning of deconditioning. And in that sense, you even as an outcome, there is a beginning somewhere, and that beginning for me defines what courage is. And I think I have not think much upon it, but in one sense I would distinguish courage from daring. Daring could be an act without reflection of any kind from within, and courage is a conscious awakening in that sense, to my mind. I would like to think more on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Richa. Thank you. Dr. Harshad Parekh, yes, please.
Yes, thank you, Dubey ji, and thank you, Dr. Richa. Are you able to hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, all human beings go through fear. Even Krishnamurti, when he was young, when he had to give a public talk, he used to hide behind the curtain and speak because there was a fear of facing people. And even Gandhiji was afraid when he had to give a public talk. So all human beings go through fear. And I myself also went through fear when I left India and went to America in a different culture. And I had to face many, many problems because I was not exposed to Western culture. My English was not good, and so many other problems I had. Only after coming to Krishnamurti, reading his books, I begin to look within myself and see what is really happening. It seems to me that developing courage is the opposite of fear, and they form a kind of a duality. When you are violent, you like to be non-violent, and so that is a duality. And I know I read somewhere that one soldier was given a medal for courage, and somebody asked how he got that courage. to kill so many enemies. So he said he was so much afraid that he started firing in all directions. So courage and fear, they go together as a duality. But what Krishna ji says is quite different. It means looking very clearly at fear and not trying to be free from it, but looking how it is arising. And that looking, it requires some kind of freedom to look, some kind of clarity. So that is what is lacking in us. And Krishnamurti talked a lot with even very young students about fear. And that was very, very interesting when I was also there, when Krishnaji was talking to students of Rishi Valley about fear. So fear is mostly because of the unknown. We don't know. As you also said that when you were in a unfamiliar territory, fear came. So fear, we have all kinds of fear. Fear of what other people will talk about us, public opinion, fear of darkness, fear of snakes, and the fear of the unknown, fear of death or dying. That is the fundamental fear all human beings have. So the only thing we can do is to just watch, observe, because all our problems, whether it is a fear or anger or jealousy or loneliness, they all come from thinking. And so one has to go right at the source from where thinking arises, and to see it, we need a different dimension other than thinking, what Krishnaji calls choiceless awareness. So only when such an awareness is awakened in us, then we can very clearly see when the anger is coming, we can see the anger is arising, and that seeing is the action which takes us away from anger. So there is no need to fight having courage, because it seems to me that in developing courage, there will be a conflict between fear and courage. So this kind of choiceless awareness, which Krishnaji is talking about, is the real key which solves all our problems, whether it is a fear or an anger or a jealousy or loneliness or boredom, all that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Harshad bhai. Thanks a lot. Yes, Prasad sir, you want to say something, Richa ji?
Just being grateful, it has opened up a lot of ideas for me. I'll reflect on them. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes, Prasad sir, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Actually, most of the things Parekh sir told, that those are the few points I want to mention. Yeah, like I don't say it's correction, but I will just say it is an addition to what you said, Richa ji. Like you said, must be courageous. There, I just want to like add a little more. Like it's not must be courageous, but it is more about dealing with the fear. It's staying with the fear and seeing its structure more closely, and having more deeper insight into the fear, because it is deep rooted. And so the more we move close to it and more make friendship with it, then it has to reveal itself for us. So yeah, that is the one thing I would like to mention. And another one is like when we are talking about fear, we have to come to this another not we have to come to, but at some point we have to deal with time. What is psychological time? It is just like addition to what you said. What I want to say is like psychological time. The more we understand psychological time and in its aspects, I think it is more helpful to dealing with fear. Because as any car or bus, it needs a road to travel, right? So the psychological time, no, the thought, it travels on the path of time, actually. So without the road, the vehicle cannot move. So in the same manner, without psychological time, the thought cannot move. So this moment is the more at the core of the fear. So that is what I want to mention, because it may be wrong or right, but we can give a thought. So that's the reason I want to add a few things to what you said.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rajendran, please unmute yourself.
Hello. Thank you, Dubey, and thank you, Dr. Richa. Just after listening or reading Krishnamurti, some of us have certain fears. That is, fear of standing alone, fear of not being a stereotype, fear of not being mediocre. Because we have the fear of standing alone. That is, we have that herd mentality. Go in groups, and we don't want to be singled out for being noticed. So we have that herd mentality. So standing alone is fearful for us. Then number two, so we cherish knowledge and cherish knowledge, that accumulation, because knowledge has no end and we go on accumulating it. So freedom from the knowledge is another fearful thing, because once if we are free from the knowledge, then we are nothing. We don't want to be nothing. We want to be something, somebody. So next thing is fear to empty the mind. If you empty the mind, then we will be nothing. Then fourth is ending thought, fear of ending the thought and ending me. So what will I be when I ending thought and thereby me? What I will be? So these sort of fears are there. Again, for all these things, then again I ask question: how to be free from fear? How to be courageous? How to become courageous? So this becoming and how, they are also play hurdles in our role. So you already said, you just realized the cause of fear. So I want you to spend some more time telling me whether to be courageous, have you made any efforts, and how you, by seeing the reality, when we see the truth of it, one becomes courageous because the truth is on your side. So just to be courageous, have you made any efforts? You already said no, but just want you to spend some more time on that. Efforts to be courageous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rajendran. I think Richa ji has already mentioned this in her speech, but would you like to say something, Richa ji?
Yeah, I think I have no sort of, in terms of the efforts, if I see what efforts I have made, it is, I think it's the struggle with, the first effort comes with the struggle with your own thoughts, how first you, and it's like, I do, I do thank people who sort of who have enriched the discourse of the, if I talk about courage, there's a duality of fear and courage. So I would say that I am at the beginning of the journey. So where I have just started first understanding the thoughts that occupy my mind and thoughts that are causing fear. Now, and to my mind, it so happens that you first acknowledge that there is something. It starts with this acknowledgement that yes, there is a limit to what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I'm doing, and what I am. So I think that's the effort that I'm making, and the beginning is in the acceptance and acknowledgement. And then maybe in few cases I've been trying to move beyond the acknowledgement state, where I'm trying to sort of align them and sort of do that classification as to this one is a troubling thing, or it's something that is coming from the outside, it's not from within. So I think it this way, and it's just the nascent stage.
Thank you, Richa ji. Yes, Mr. Pradeep Verma.
Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Congratulations, Richa ji. I am overwhelmed with your honesty and passionate love for honesty. Never compromised. In fact, you were never single. Honesty was always with you. Your appreciation of Kabir and JK shows that you already carried seeds for those things which flowered after seeing or reading these people. So this shows the love for truth and honesty. You were talking about a beautiful couplet, Had and Behad, Behad Gaya na koi something. So one can go Behad only beyond the person. If a person has seen clearly everything and love for that clarity, which may be inborn most of the people. So then only one can go beyond. Then only one can see, which you were referring, quoting JK, that reality, a different reality or the truth comes to you. Thank you very much, Richa. Keep going. Have a nice time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pradeep ji. Yes, Anand ji, please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I was just wondering, why are we saying there should not be any fear? No fear at all. I want to know why. Because my very survival depends upon fear. Why don't I look at that? And at every second, I'm trying to survive. And without fear, where am I is a question. And without fear, am I not a dangerous person to the other people and also to myself? How do I look at that as a question? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think if I'm allowed to bring in the conception of Advait, which sort of aligns with Krishnamurti's some of the ideas that of Vyavaharik Satta, the world that we think is real, where we are into relations, where I'm someone, I'm interacting as Richa with Anandji here. That Satta operates on fear, certainly. And while we are being into that Satta, which of course is, which operates with lot of predicates of being Richa the teacher, being Richa the girl, being Richa the woman, being, Richa so and so, so and so. So it's all relational, and it's this Vyavahr, it definitely operates on fear, and it can't survive without the fear also. But why there has to be quest to go beyond this fear, as in the absence of fear, it's to realize that there is Paramarthik Satta. And that's the truth. When we say the truth, it's the truth, the realization of that consciousness, which is where you have the complete absence of the predicates of all these kinds. And so I think the Vyavhar definitely operates on the basis of fear. But if you have to go beyond it, you have to realize the truth, then the cessation of fear is important. That's how I understand. It's like, fear is like those textbooks which points towards the gyan, the knowledge, but it's not the gyan itself. It's just indicator. So fear in the Vyavharik is an indicator that something beyond it is there. So, the moment there's an attainment of knowledge, even the Shastras are meaningless. Even the text is meaningless. It's the ladder which have enabled you to go beyond, but then the moment you are there, the ladder is of no use. You realize that it's of no meaning. It was unreal in that sense. So I think, and you are a dangerous person if you realize that by being in the Vyavhara, because then people would not be able to sort of exercise the kind of operation that is a part of the Vyavhara. They won't be able to sort of, lure you into the various kind of Maya Jal. They won't be able to. So, you are dangerous if you are fearless. And I think, that could be an aspirational thing to be while being here. I at least think that way. I don't know.
One more question, madam. The region where we are born, we call Bhaya Bhakti. Without Bhaya, there is no Bhakti. That is one. And also, they have put fear of God in me. The so-called truth, the so-called God. Now, how do I look at that? Am I not contradicting myself when I say there should not be no fear? I should be fearless. Thank you, ma'am.
I think even the God as a category, which is a category that come into our conscious, to our concept, it's out of fear. And with the actual realization of the self, even God's existence will be, it'll be subdued. It will be sort of, you would even realize that, the existence of God into various forms is also just part of your not realizing the truth. And once you realize the truth, the God is also becomes an entity within that unreal world that you have to go beyond. So, I can bring in very beautiful sort of, example from Nyaya Vaisheshik. That's one of the Indian school of philosophy who are realist, and they distinguish between Brahman and Ishvara. So Ishwar is Vyavharik Satta. The Brahm is beyond. So Brahm is Aham Brahmasmi. So that's the realization. So God, if we translate it, though Ishwar and God are also not translatable in that sense, but still with a common understanding, if we say that, then Ishwar has to just do with this fear to operate this world, which we think is, for the timing, we think that this is the only world. And once we go beyond it, we realize that it's the truth within, where even God have no significance.
Thank you, Richa ji. Yes, Dinesh ji.
Are you able to listen to me?
Mm-hmm.
I fully agree with you, Richa ma'am, on this, whatever you said, and about even this philosophy also, whatever you said is perfectly all right as far as my views are there. And I also think that as far as Vyavharik Satta is concerned, persons like you and I should reach to their competence level. And when we talk of role, we should be fully knowledgeable, more skillful, to have more courage. And for the worldly affairs, to deal the worldly affair, we should have the good relations. Also, we should have the good deeds, which reflects back and which will give us the good results. So perfectly all right, madam. That's what I think. Thank you.
Yes, Harshad bhai. Unmute. Unmute yourself. Unmute.
Yes. No, we all are afraid of dying, the death of the body, and we don't like to die. And it is not a fear, it is an instinct for survival, which is a kind of a intelligence, and that is common to human beings, birds, animals, even insects. They don't want to die, they resist. But our problem is the fear of the psychological self, that self, the image which we have, and that image comes from thinking. And so that creates the fear, this image, and that creates sometimes we get hurt when somebody says something unpleasant to us because we have an image that we are beautiful or intelligent, and somebody says something else, so we get hurt. So our problem is the real fear which can be eliminated is by looking at fear, at looking at thinking itself from a different dimension than thinking. And as long as that has not awakened this intelligence to see thoughts and things as they are. And because we don't have that dimension which exists within all of us, but we are living mostly in the dense layers of thinking and feeling, so that intelligence is not awakened. But in some people like Kabir or Krishnamurti or some Mirabai and many people, a different way of looking at thinking itself comes, and that is the awakening of intelligence, what Krishnaji talks about. So as long as that awakening of intelligence has not come in our life, there will be fear, and we will get caught into too much thinking and effort and developing courage and so on. So our main problem is the lack of intelligence, which is not thinking and feeling. It's a different dimension. Okay, I've finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Harshad bhai.
Are you able to listen to me?
Yes.
What comment I would like to make on Harshad sir's statement right now? There are two questions basically, in my views. What we are, as Rishaji said, and who we are. So what we are comes under the Vyavaharik Satta, what Richaji was referring. And that is directly related to image, as Harshad sir was saying. But this, how this image will become confident? So image has to become confident to or courageous to deal with the worldly affairs. So this courage, when you will get? When that image will feel confident about herself. So your subconscious and unconscious mind has to have that confidence in itself. So that image has to be very much confident, so as to have the courage to deal with the worldly affairs. Another question, which is who we are, that what truth we were saying about, which is the beyond. For that, that intelligence is a must, and that probably may come after you deal with first the worldly affairs to certain level, and then you may go for that question, another question, and deal with the awakening of the intelligence. That's what my views are. Thank you.
Thank you, Dinesh. I think if you don't have image, then you don't have to strengthen that image and make it confident. Is it possible not to have any image at all? That will be a religious question that one has to think about. And intelligence is a must. I think you are so categorical. What is the intelligence that you are talking about? What kind of intelligence? Is this the intelligence that Krishnamurti talks about, or is your definition of intelligence. Yes, Anandji, please. You don't have to answer.
Yes, sir. I mean, when we say,
Just think about it. Yeah. Yes, please
so
go
when
ahead.
we say we should not have fear, when we say we
Nobody
should
said-
not have fear,
no,
again, we are getting caught, sir.
No,
Can you hear me, sir?
nobody said don't have fear. We are only talking about psychological fear. And which
I
is a-
understand, sir.
which is
I
a-
understand,
which is-
but the
let me
words
fin-
what we
let
have
me-
used, there should not be
let-
fear, or we should overcome fear.
No. Let me make it clear. Please listen to me for a minute. We are talking about psychological fear, which is a construct of the thought.
Absolutely.
Are we able to see that?
Right.
This is what is being discussed. Having it, not having it is a different thing. The whole
Absolutely.
dialogue is around this point, that are we able to see that the psychological fear which the thought creates, are we able to see that? This is the question.
That's also my point, sir. Are we seeing it or we are not seeing it? Again, I'm caught in it. Can I see that I don't say it? It's what is very essential. Even when I talk about good, that I should be a good human being, that is what every human being, everybody has said for ages. For timeless, I've been saying you have to be a good human being. But Krishnamurti is saying something else. He's talking about goodness, which does not have the opposite for the like you have for the good. So that is what we need to look at it. Every time I'm contradicting myself when I talk about Krishnamurti, I'm interpreting Krishnamurti all the time according to my own understanding. And Krishnamurti says you can never understand. Even a so-called great sages have never spoken about the psychological aspect of it. I mean, here's a person who speaks and then we contradict ourselves all the time. That is all I'm saying. Whether I can see it or don't see it, again, I'm back in time. Thank you, sir.
I think that is a question for all of us to ponder over and find an answer. I don't think we have any questions now, so we can come to an end of this talk. I want to thank Richa ji once again for sparing her time and being with us. It was a very thought-provoking discourse, which raised lots of meaningful questions. Thanks a lot, Richa ji, for being with us. And I'll announce the next talk on next Sunday. Next Sunday, we have Miss Meena Martini. She is from Finland. And the next Sunday talk will be at 6 p.m. To adjust to her timing, it will be 6 p.m. And she is going to talk on It's All About Love. So if you're free, please do join us on next Sunday at 6 p.m. And thank you all. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dubeyji. And
Thank
thanks the speaker also at the same time with the speaking eye, smiling face and everything. I wish to keep that alive. Thank you.
Yeah, I will
Thank
invite her once again. Thank you. Thank
To
you.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Please end it, Modak.